I saw from your resume that you build, you bring Tencent Cloud to the globe, and you build feature in 2 months. So my question here is, what feature did you build during the 2 months, and what was your launch plan?
Okay, so our 2-month plan for this international version of IoT Hub is actually our first overseas product in the whole IoT product line. So would you like me to go over a little bit about what this product line is about?
Because I'm pretty curious about what kind of feature you build is actually the breaking point to bring this product to the globe. And also, because the global market is pretty huge, like what you mentioned in your resume. So what was your launch plan, and how did you go step by step to launch this product?
So, okay, so now there are basically 2 questions I can summarize. So the first question is that what is unique about this feature to the globe, correct? Okay, so let me make some notes. And the second question is about how it is going to be launching. So the launching plan, right? Okay, so let me try to explain the first question. So in terms of the international version of a cloud product, one of course, the language is going to be one of the most important features, but that's just like translating. You're going to extract a lot of keywords and documentation, and then you're going to put in English or other language. That is the easiest part, the easiest way to make an international version. However, that is not what is going to be different, because there are other technical or some backend stuff to change in terms of the international project. So as for the mission or for our clients, it is very important to make sure the data are secure. That means when they're trying to manufacture a lot of IoT devices that are produced by our platform somehow, they are going to make it very secure in terms of data. So to isolate the data from different regions to make that kind of backend system is one of the things that are most important in this, in terms of the international version of a product. So that is the first question. Does that make sense?
Okay, so basically what you did is from the front end, you did the language translation part of the product, and also from the back end, you make sure that the data is secure, right?
Yeah, right, correct. And so to make it a little bit add up, that it is not only secure but also isolated. So that means the international data, the international data and then domestic data are separated. So that's the other factor. And now let's go to the second question. So it is for the planning. We do have a lot of opportunities that are coming from lots of different countries. So there are Southeast Asia and Europe or North Americas, and a lot of things we need to, the most important factor to evaluate whether to launch in this country is revenue. And that also comes from a lot of data or some of the estimations from our clients. And that is some of the important things from the 2B business. So a lot of times we need to gather a form for the clients from a specific country, that like how many clients are in this country and how many products they are going to be bringing on cloud, and what is the revenue we are gaining from those list of clients. So after this analyzation, we decided to launch the North America site and the Thailand site as our first step. And then we are trying to launching other countries based on the data. And I remember, as I can remember, the next step is Europe.
Okay.
Yeah.
And also, I saw you designed a BI feature with the 6 metrics and 3 charts. I bet like the metrics and chart you're talking about here is specifically for your customers, right? It is not like for the whole platform.
It is actually for the whole platform, but the requirements actually comes from one of, it's not one of, several of our big clients or major clients in China. So that is I guess in terms of where the source, where the requirement comes from, it is most from domestic, but in terms of where it's launching, it's basically launching to the whole platform.
So wait, so your requirement is coming from China while your product is launched globally?
Yeah, you can say that basically, because we don't, in terms of this business intelligence feature, it is a feature for the whole platform instead of for the just for like domestic version of IoT Hub.
Okay, then how do you make sure that your global customers also need those metrics and charts? And what if they request something else, they need something else?
Okay, so first of all, we do make sure that it is a need for the clients overseas and also in China. And that is actually through 2 ways. So the first way is to talk to the client. Like say, one of our launching, it is about this hosting feature, where we provide a documentation about to introduce this new feature and to have a conversation with them to make sure that they are satisfied with it. That is one of the preliminary ways. And we also did a let's see. We also try to do a competitive analysis. For instance, we do make some comparisons with similar products on Microsoft and by Microsoft, and try to make sure this is what they want, and we can make it some. We are going to make something similar, but we can make it different so that it is specifically unique to our clients instead of like the clients for other cloud providers.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
And I basically just take the 2 ways for these for to make sure that it is because it is a pretty small group and it's a preliminary launching. So basically that is the 2 ways we can take for that. But if you're going to talk about metrics and stuff like that, I can also share some of the data I try to analyze from our domestic version, but that is not associated to like the whole international version.
But was there a time that maybe you developed something, but which is not your customer's request?
Well, Yeah, there is a little feature in this business intelligence feature that are not so important to the clients, but I thought about it beforehand. So to explain this, I would say it is from the map. And the feature I decided to put on was to put a very complex selection method for the users to take a look at their IoT devices in maybe 2 or 3 or more cities. So they can, in terms of if you are a user and you're going to try to identify which kind of products are you would like to display in a certain region, you can select them all to make sure it is displaying pretty. However, after several conversations with our fellow PMs and also the clients, it turns out they only want to see they only want to see the devices displayed in a certain location, not multiple locations. So that is the basically the selection for me. I mean, the option for me is to whether to keep this feature or to drop it. So the action I take is that I try to display this. I try to make this whole process into a flowchart and to explain it to my fellow PMs. And we do have a discussion on whether it is necessary for our clients. And after that, we decided to put it in a second phase. So that was the action I took. And then we put this whole flowchart thing and the action we are going to take in front of the clients, the major clients, and trying to let them understand which kind of plan they would like to accept or they would like to see. And it turns out they do like to see the multiple locations, but it seems like a single location has been good enough for the clients as a first step. So in the end, we launched this first step product, and maybe in the future iteration after we have some voice of customer interviews or follow-ups with the clients, maybe we would add it to as the next phase. So basically, what I learned from this is that a lot of times it is necessary to think of all the use cases and a lot of different situations, but it is also important to make trade-offs and to communicate with the clients to understand really what is the most essential thing to put on as a feature.
Yeah, I probably missed that, but could you remind me of the trade-off that you were making?
So the trade-off was not putting a multi-location, a very complex selection system on the map, but to just put a single city selection. So maybe if you want to see it in Santa Clara, let's say, you'll see it in Santa Clara. You won't see Santa Clara and Seattle. That's what it's essentially happening. It eventually turns out.
Why do you need to make the trade-off?
It just because it is. So first of all, it is not the primary sort of role or primary sort of requirement or primary sort of outcome that would be that would be very important to our clients. The second reason is that it do adds up a lot of engineering complexity and effort to the engineers. So we cannot make it on time and or to launch it really fast. So does that make sense?
And my last question is, you mentioned that you improve 8% users, increase 8% of your total users because of your redesign. So I'm curious, what was your redesign and what problems did you solve at that time?
Okay, so so this is actually for both IoT Explorer and Tencent Lianlian. So basically, in terms of the IoT Explorer, it is a SaaS product that are helping our clients to build their IoT devices from scratch with coding and with a interfacing sort of thing. And as for the app, it is because we have a many apps that are on WeChat, or it could be also a app that are letting the end users to maybe just to click several buttons to control their devices. So that's basically what is going on by the two products. So what I did for the interface is that I figured out sometimes it is a little bit hard for the users to understand what is going on, and a lot of times they are skipping phases or they miss some part of the design that are going to hurt their development process eventually. So what I did for this developing interface and control interface is I make little small changes to put the buttons on the other side, or some sort of arrangement sort of things. So a lot of times it is going to help the users, and they are understanding what is going on to the product, and they're more likely to use these kind of products after this little arrangement are making. That is about the whole story.
Let me ask you in another way. So do you think 8% is the right number, is the right outcome you should get by your redesign, or you think 8% is too high or too low?
Okay. So in terms of this engagement in 8%, I would say it's this a little bit. I wouldn't say it's too high because 8% is not a lot of devices, means not a lot of end users. But I would say it is reasonable with a little changes because it is just redesigning the user interface a little bit. Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's all of my questions. What do you think of your answers?
I don't know. I feel like it's not super chill as the conversation goes, but it feels like I have tried, and this is not going to be similar to the usual product designs or the sort of problems. Yeah, I didn't explain any technology, so that's something new.
Actually, these are the questions that you will frequently get from companies,
okay.
Microsoft, or other companies that don't have APM programs, because I feel like based on my interviewed experience, the companies that have APM programs, not specifically just for their APM programs, but for all of their product manager roles, they ask a lot of case questions. But for other companies, they will ask you product questions, product related questions based on your previous experience. So that will be very frequent. Those questions will be very frequently asked if you interview other companies. And the thought process of those, how to answer those questions are actually the same when you answer the product case question. Because when I, for example, when I asked you what feature did you build during the 2 months and what was your launch plan, it was actually a product design question, because you need to think through why you designed the features you designed and what problems you solve. And when I asked you what was your launch plan, it was actually an execution question. So those are like the same mechanisms and same way to answer those questions. So just make sure that you thought through your experience deeply to understand why you make those decisions, and what was your analysis like when you first make those decisions.
Does my answer specific enough, or like are they?
Yeah, I think that
are they lack of details.
Yeah, that was the first question I will have. Like for a lot of answers you gave me, it seems like you are holding back. Like you should give more context or more information about the product. Like when you talk about maybe your competitive analysis, especially you mentioned Microsoft product. If you like regard my role as a Microsoft employee, Microsoft interviewer, I will have the curiosity to ask you, what was the Microsoft product? Like, what was your competitive analysis? How did you do the competitive analysis? What was your conclusion? Those type of questions. So you cannot just tell me you did the competitive analysis. That was not your thought process. That was your process, right? So I would say you should provide more information to the interviewer, as long as the information is not confidential, and as long as you are not talking too much about the specific detail that the interviewer will not be interested in. That would be totally okay for you to provide more information. So the thing is, for your answer, for your overall answer, the things that you did good was that you try to make the whole process more clear to the interviewer, because I know like for some of the answers you might want to add a lot of information in your answer, but you still try to make it very clear for the interviewer. Like for maybe this is the product and this was the problem that we're trying to solve, and how did we solve it? So you try to make it more streamlined and more structured. This is the thing that you did good. And also you when I asked you a follow-up question, you did give me more information. So for example, when I asked you what was the trade-off that you made and why did you make the trade-off, I think your answer was better than the previous answer. Like you talk about like your engineering effort is limited and it is not something that your customers request. And those are exactly the decisions you need to make the product decision. So that should be the first answer. If the interviewer is not nice enough, they will not ask you a follow-up question. So yeah, so these are the things that you did good. And in terms of the points that you still need to improve, the first one, I think I've already told you something about this. Be more confident. I think it was something that I told you last time, right? Like when you talk about it is your product, it's your decision. So be confident and maybe reflect your experience more to make sure that, to make sure how and why you make those decisions, to make yourself more confident when you talk about it next time. So it's the first one, be more confident. And the second one, when I asked you, what did you do for your redesign? Why did you improve 8% of users? And why did I, let me ask you one question. Why did I ask you whether the 8% is too high or too low?
So I do feel like when you're asking me specific about this experience, it turns out I need to find the correlation between redesigning the interface and the user increment. So it turns out the problem is going to be whether my improvement is successful or not.
Hmm.
Is that is that what you are trying to ask?
Actually, I want to make sure that you know why you want to redesign the experience. So for example, if you're a full-time product manager, when you want to maybe use your designer or use your engineers to redesign the process, you need to prove that it is worth it, right? So you need to give maybe manager or like the engineering team an estimation. After the redesign, maybe you estimate 5% of increase, users increase, right? So you might have your estimation, you might have your sizing for the project. So how did you do the sizing? When you do the sizing, you must tell your stakeholders, what was the problem that users face, right? Why do those users get confused when they go through the process? What was the funnel analysis, and in which step we lose most of the users? So that's why we need to redesign, right? You talk about the users do not know where to go. You talk about the users might get confused about the whole user journey. What was the step that lose the most users? What was the step that you improved the most? That was the question I was trying to ask, because next time you're a product manager in like our company, like Microsoft, right? Although I am a Microsoft employee, but not that Microsoft, but still, when you're a full-time employee, you need to prove that this idea is worth doing. You need to know why you are redesigning the product. That was the question I wanted to ask. So it is not only about, I don't really care about 8% or 7%, but do you know that why you are redesigning this product? And did you have your estimation, or how do you feel about the redesign?
Right. Correct.
And those are
I agree.
I have. Do you have any questions?
But are you asking me, do I have any questions? Sorry, Lisa. Okay. Yeah. So actually, my international launching is not necessarily a product design or product launching. I think from a point of view of a intern, it's more like a program management, or it's like a process sort of things, because obviously at the beginning I would have to initialize the process, and then I have to work with different teams, for instance, the engineering teams, or international teams, or the legal teams, to figure out how are we going to put in for this in international version, or in terms of data security. It is a lot of work is actually done between me and the engineers, and also the lawyers. So in terms of, do you think I should be structured in a way of how the process it's going for my launching, or it is going to be just from a designer, a product design, or a launching perspective?
So first, this is the nature of your role in this team. Because if you are a product manager for cloud services, if you're a product manager for B2B product, like especially in the global launch, in a scenario like this, program management is going to be the major of your, it is going to be the major of your day-to-day work. So if you are using most of your time doing program management, just talk about how you did it, because that is also something we really value as a product manager's skill set. And in terms of product redesign or product design, if you didn't do that part, or like that part was taken care of by some other product managers, just make sure that you understand why they're making those product decisions. Because as an intern, your scope is very limited, and you only stay there for, I remember, like not even half a year. Yeah, half a year. So we didn't expect you to like launch a global product in half a year. Right? Even for a full-time employee, it is such a short time period. We don't have that expectation. But the thing is, we want you, maybe as a candidate, to understand what your stakeholders did. And so next time when you did something similar, you can know what the process would look like, right? And what the process was like, and you might have that expectation to your different stakeholders. You might know what they should deliver in a project like this and what you should do.
Yeah, it turns out 2 months is really, we were actually the fastest. Okay, all right. So I think I'm running out of my question. Any questions from our audience?
Yes, stop the recording first.